we'll carry on. This afternoon we're going to talk about post-editing training. As we mentioned earlier this morning, post-editing is fairly new, and although we've been talking about it for different formats of machine translation, 10 years ago it was rules-based and statistical. Now we have new forms, neural machine translation. So do we have training for that? Not quite yet, but the principles don't change very much. So before coming here, I thought, well, let me take a look and see what's available. So let's see what's available out there. Who does what? Who trains who? So teaching post-editing is very important because as I keep on saying, there's an explosion of content coming. You know that from your daily lives because you live it on your televisions, on your mobiles, on your cinema, everywhere. There is so much content. And machine translation is here to stay, and it should be our friend. So learning how to do post-editing and becoming experts in it is a good thing for all the linguists. Okay? So it will help us increase the demand for our profession, because the more people are able to translate and see that they need a human, there's going to be more demand for linguists, because we are going to be able to put into the proper format the machine translation. Although the skills are slightly different, we need to make sure that we teach both translation and post-editing. And the good thing about post-editing is that it is much easier to post-edit than to translate, as we have already confirmed with a few of you in different conversations. So a graduate coming out of college with their first degree can immediately start working as a post-editor of very simple text, non-specialized text, maybe some business text. And that is very good for graduates because immediately they can earn some money, and at the same time they can start building a portfolio and building up their experience and expertise in different areas. So there is a slightly different process in post-editing because, as we said in the morning, in translation we generate it. We only need the source text and then we generate the translation. Okay, we have to do some research, but more or less it's a plain straightforward process. Well, in post-editing it's a little bit more complicated. Oops. Sorry, I did something. Okay. So there's a lot of checks that need to be done. So first of all, you need to understand the source. Okay, so you read the source. Then you have to read the machine translation. Then you have to make sure that it's accurate. So you fix the inaccuracies. So that's the very first step in the process. Then you go back into it and you start fixing the fluency. And immediately after that, you check with your glossary terminology and you start checking the terms. And you consolidate as well, so you keep consistency at this stage. And finally, at the end of it, you've done all these important things that you have to do. Now you can look at the style. Okay? So this is for a full post-editing. And as you can see, when you're translating and you translate, some of you have become so good at your subject that you translate directly, you read it once and it's good. But in the beginning you were always editing your stuff, so you had to do certain checks. You had to make sure that your terminology was right, that all the punctuation was accurate, that it reads fluently. All of these things that you were doing when you were first becoming a translator are important again as post-editor. So a few differences in training. A trainee translator focuses mostly on accuracy, and the most important thing is cultural equivalence. And finally, when they're finished with the translation, it's ready for publication. A post-editing trainee is going to focus on the basic rules of the target language. And then you're going to follow the source language. And finally, you focus on learning how to anticipate empty patterns. So depending on your language combination, your pair, and the machine translation engine that you're using, your subject specialization, you're going to start learning what to anticipate, what errors are going to happen. If you're lucky, you will be given a text which has been pre-edited, but that is something that you will have to live without for a while. Now, translation and PE training, both of them need to be trained for language proficiency. Both need to be subject experts, so you need to choose your specialization. You need to have cultural intelligence to understand both the cultures, so you understand the source culturally, but you are also able to translate in the target. You have research skills and word processing skills, and you understand the terminology theory. But in addition, for post-editing, you need to start being more technologically aware of how to create term bases and how to do terminology coding as you're moving on to this experience. Also, you have to understand the basics of machine translation. So for you right now, the fact that there are 3 different types of machine translation is you just know their names. Well, you need to start understanding how they work, their principles. You don't need to be an engineer. You also need to start working closer with controlled language, because controlled language is not just the input in the machine translation, it's the output as well. And then finally, you need to do a lot of macros and programming, some very slight programming skills, because when you recognize certain patterns on the outputs, you can do very quick macros and correct them universally in your document, which can be, 3,000 words or 15,000 words. So if you know how to do a quick macro and you see the pattern in the first paragraph, then you've saved yourself quite a bit of time. Now, there is some theoretical training, and there is basically, you need to have an introduction to what post-editing is, which is a lot more than what we did today. Introduction to machine translation technology, introduction to controlled language authoring, all of these things we've touched upon. But then you need some advanced skills, advanced terminology management, because you already have been taught in schools terminology, but to do post-editing, you need to have advanced terminology skills, and also advanced text linguistics, and some very basic programming skills for macros. On the practical side for training, it is a practical skill. You can learn it, basically, and it can be learned fairly easily. There is a study amongst the PDFs that we gave you for reading material, which claims that after the study was done, that a post-editor needs 100,000 words or a full month working every day, full day, to reach a comfort level, meaning they start recognizing patterns and they start being able to easily correct the text that they have. So if you don't work full-time every day, it's going to take a little bit longer than a month, but basically I don't think that it's a long time to acquire such a skill. Even if you do it over a period of 3 months, it's a skill which is well worth having. Then the other thing is, as I said in the morning, you need to practice really with different machine translation engines. They give different results, and of course different subjects give different results. And analyzing, comparing the results as we did in the exercise before is going to help you to home in directly into the patterns when you're working at a deadline. Another thing is that a lot of you are using CAD tools and other systems. So machine translation, which is going to be your friend, should be able to be integrated in the tools you're using. So, a way forward is to create term bases in multiple terminology management systems. Now, when you're being taught terminology, there are many tools that you can use for that. And practicing on different tools is going to help your skills in advanced terminology. There are many controlled language authoring tools, and there are many controlled languages. You know, start familiarizing yourselves with them. The basics are similar. So once you read about one of them, then you read about the other one. You can start understanding how they're similar. So your brain starts working, to home in onto those similarities. Those are very, very helpful traits. Corpus analysis and some practical programming skills will be good. Now, how is post-editing in universities? I'm not so sure which universities here teach what, but before coming here, I wanted to share what is done in some universities in Europe. So I reached out to some of my friend professors. One from the University of Leeds said that they have optional module for machine translation and some separate sessions during this module for machine translation post-editing, okay? And some of these are compulsory. In terms of online resources, you'll have this slide, so please check them out. The European Union is very good at funding joint university programs. And a lot of the professors come together and they create certain resources that are going to help them teach in different languages, because as you know, in the European Union, there's about 28 languages, if not more. And they have to be teaching in similar ways and cover similar subjects. So they get together, and one of the programs they have is Ecolo, which is something they started in 2004, and it went offline in 2009. And they came to me and said, can we use the Translation Commons platform to revive it? And we have been working for the last 3 years to update it, and now it's online on Translation Commons. In the meantime, they wanted to progress on the language technology side a little bit more. So they created DigiLink, which is also funded by the EU, and that is available for you to look at. Another friend of mine who works at KU Leuven, she says that they teach a full module of machine translation post-editing only in the postgraduate program in specialized translation, and the students learn how to build and train a machine translation engine with open source tools and practice post-editing in XTM. XTM is a tool in Europe. I don't think you have it here, but you can check it out. And they also integrated post-editing in the module for the CAD tools, and which is open for master students, and also Erasmus students and postgraduate students. And they do every summer, like this workshop, which is a 10-day workshop. They do their equivalent, the Summer School of Translation Technology, which is in Amsterdam, somewhere in Amsterdam or Holland, somewhere. In Brussels, the university is, Pascaline is the vice dean, and she said that their post-editing is integrated in their translation courses again for the master's program. And the theoretical aspects are part of the CAD tools, and there is revision, review, and post-editing, which is part of the project management module. And there are also some translation technology courses that the students can do. So then what are the commercial courses available, paid and unpaid? I didn't find any unpaid. I only found 2 paid. So the first one is SDL Trados. It's actually a reasonably priced module. I believe that the actual training is free, but in order to take the certificate, you need to pay. So all the questions are part of the certificate, and you need to pay for that. And then Taos also has one, and again, this is also reasonably priced, and you just pay for it and you follow their instructions. These are the only 2 I found. If anybody knows of more, please let us all know. Put it on the WeChat, because that's all I could find for the last couple of months I've been looking for. So, do you feel confident that you're post-editors? Any questions?